addiction.
Ah, okay, okay.
I wrote it 4 or 5 years back when there was the epidemic was at its peak.
Yes,
So this was well accepted all over the place. I think it is in every single public library in America.
that's amazing when you told
Yeah.
us that. And for those just joining, Dr. Purvez, he's from Momentum Medical Research in Charlottesville, Virginia. He's also got a private practice. Uh, One of the things I watched the Megyn Kelly interview with the new FDA head, Makari,
Right.
and I don't know if you got a chance to see it, but
No, I haven't seen it. Right.
it's, I mean, it's pretty revealing. And then after that podcast, he did a podcast with the new Vinay Prasad, I believe is his name. He's the new head of the CBER, Center for
Uh-huh.
Biologic and Evaluation Research.
Right.
And they are all about transparency. They specifically use the opioid crisis as an example of a lack of trust with Americans and the FDA. And McHarry himself in the podcast said pretty specifically it's inappropriate for doing like a study for 14 days on a drug that was meant to be used under very close supervision to be given as outpatient treatments, like it
Right.
was at
Right.
a clinic. So I'm assuming you're of the similar view as this new administration.
Yeah, I'm all for open access to everyone, clearly defining the terms, clearly finding out what's happening, rather than a dictate for someone, okay, go ahead and take this drug, go ahead and take this medicine, unless and until we know all the risks and benefits. While in an epidemic situation, it does make sense bringing out something quickly, trying to save lives at that moment is good. But once we're out of that situation, it does make sense looking at everything what we have. And some of the medications, I would say some of the vaccines and other things, they have been there for years and years. We have proven the safety on and on and on. I don't know whether we need to go back to them, but anything new that's coming up, any new medications that are coming up, it's very reasonable idea to go rather than rush any of the medications, any of the vaccines. Make sure that we're doing it right because now we're not in an emergency situation right now.
That's right. Yeah, and I mean, I remain hopeful and optimistic that from what I've seen so far, I was just telling Chris, by the way, Dr. Purvez is a client of Chris and I services, so DSCS. So he's got a startup research site in addition to his busy private practice over there in Charlottesville. Any other, besides UVA, any other research centers out there that you're aware of?
We love Charlottesville. I'm an alumni of University of Virginia, which is one of the greatest schools ever. Most of the years it comes comes out as public university one or two, one of the greatest place to work. And Charlottesville, as such, I would give an example. Um, uh, Out of all the presidents that we have had so far, 40 something. 10 have been from Virginia, if remember it correctly. And out of those 10, big proportion, obviously, out nationwide, out of those, three have been from Charlottesville area. So
Okay.
very fertile land for your ideas and emotions. Right.
What about other research sites? So excluding UVA, but do you know of any other
There's another
community-based
private
clinics?
research site I've been working with for some time. I've
Okay.
been their principal investigator in the past, and we have worked on vaccines. We have worked on capsaicin derivatives for knee pain. So we have done a few things there, but this is the practice. The momentum medical research is part of our clinical practice. That's called Pain and Spine Center of Charlottesville. So we have a patient base, we have other volunteers, we have a large group of people who we can recruit anytime for the studies, and they're willing to do so because they trust us.
And so you have had research experience in the past with
Yes.
the other site. Okay, so it makes sense. So you're an experienced PI. an
Yes.
author. I'm gonna put the link to your book underneath this video and in the show notes. But yeah,
That
when
was,
you
by the
get,
way, one book. The other book is called The Brain Behind Pain. That was the latest one
I
I wrote
see.
that kind of defines a little bit more issues. And I'm working on the third one. Hopefully, that'll be out soon. That talks about health, fitness, exercise, and where the disconnect is, where the research is, and where our current clinical practice is.
So where do you think the disconnect is?
Oh, there's a huge disconnect. I think I think if I had to say it, we're still reading Gray's Anatomy that I read 40 years back when I was way back in Himalayas reading it and reading the medicine text with it. I think most of us still in, an advanced country like ours, we're still relying on old protocols and old information. That has not changed much. What has changed in the last 40, 50 years is now we can control infections and we can save lives resulting from infections that used to take lives before. Epidemics and diphtherias and pneumonias and every tetanus and everything. But overall, in many areas, the life situation hasn't changed much. There was a report yesterday about the lifespan has hardly changed in southern United States, especially for women.
Yeah.
Very little as compared to people on the East Coast and some other areas where lifespan for women and has changed up to 20 to 30 years in the last 50, 60 years. But it has stayed very low in the other areas. Mostly, I think that's mostly related to our not being proactive with I have a lot of, incidental episodes, if I can tell you later. So that's where we are lagging behind.
So you think it's environmental aspects of
A
this?
lot of it is environmental, right? A lot of it is genetic, but there are a lot of modifiable factors
Yeah.
which are not taken into account. And even like I was telling you, even now in the Western world, we're lagging behind. You and I talked about that my trial with a referral to an endocrinologist, which was refused. I'm not a diabetic. I wanted to get an idea, or more of the reason actually, I wanted to see what they will say because I'm at that age where people start getting diabetes, hypertension, all these diseases. So I kind of forced my primary care physician to send me to endocrinologist. I want to see what I can do so I'm not diabetic in 10 years and 20 years. And they wrote me a 2-page letter while they will not see me um, because number one, I'm not diabetic. Because number two, they don't have enough staff. Because number three, I seem to be an educated person. I should know what to eat and drink. So that was the thing.
Mm.
And then I asked my PCP just for the sake of my research to send me to another place to do the same thing. And the same thing happened. It's a huge I won't name the names, but it's a huge chain of hospitals. They did almost the same thing. And then I was thinking to myself, if I was diabetic and I was referred to one of those places, they would have seen me in 2 weeks at the most. They have special
Right.
intakes, they would have seen me, but they would not have been able to give me my years back. They would not have been able to repair my kidney damage, liver damage, eye damage, neuropathies that would have happened in 20 years till they see me. At the most, they would modify my medications, maybe change my insulin dosage. That would have not done nothing to my lifespan, health span, and maybe given me a year or two extra. So that's where I talk about the disconnect is.
Yeah.
We're way behind where we are, where we should be.
Well, I mean, there's a lot there. I think the new administration would agree with you. Maybe those clinics knew who you were, or maybe there's other confounding factors in this situation, but I
Right.
mean, let's assume they didn't. There's no real interest in them
But
seeing
no
somebody.
endocrinology clinic will see you if you are 40 and if you are not diabetic. They will, or any other chronic
I
illness, they
see.
will
I
not see
see.
you
So
basically.
they basically
Yeah, it's
waiting
the
to,
manpower.
yeah.
It's the
So
manpower mostly probably, but still.
so they won't see a healthy person, even if somebody wants to be
Yeah.
proactive in their approach.
or you were at risk, they won't see you even then.
Sure,
Unless you actually have a chronic disease which
sure,
is
sure.
uncontrolled, then they will
And
see
even
you.
even a clinician like a primary care, like for most people, they would never get referred. It would be denied, right, by the insurance, and you wouldn't be
Yes,
allowed to go see a
yes,
endo.
exactly. I was forced to ask her because of my,
Yeah.
I was doing part research, part assessment, part looking at my book, and part where we are, how far we are lagging behind. This was a combination of all that.
So I think that's a unique place where clinical research can offer some bridge. Um,
Exactly.
it's not the purpose of it, but I think from my experience of doing this 2 decades as a site owner is there's two kind of patients that no, there's actually three kinds of patients that join. The one is the actually least common is like they just looking for money, interested in whatever there, but really it's for the money. You see that mostly in psychiatry studies. The other one is their doctor recommended it and they see it as an alternative treatment, right? Option. And then the third is
Right.
curiosity, like kind of what you're leading towards. Well, I just want to, I know there's actually a treatment involved, but by being in the study, I get to learn more about my own body. Like I know that they're going to do thorough labs, not like the standard of care. I'm seeing every 2 weeks
Right.
instead of every 2 years. So those are the three type of patients I do think research has, and this is where you hear research as a care option being thrown around, which I don't necessarily agree with because it's still research, but research as a care option stems from the right to try. It really is
Right.
from the cancer subspecialty, rare disease. Hey, you should give patients the right to try. If it's experimental, they have the right to try the access. They don't have to qualify necessarily for a study. You should just give them the right to try an experimental med. I think the administration is in a like the new people, Macri and Prasad, I believe is his name, are on the same
Right.
page with you. So
Yes.
how that correlates to industry, I'm not sure. I know
Right.
there's some innuendos that Prasad, who's in charge of CBER, is kind of against gene editing and gene modifying. I know Macri came out and said the NIH was overly reliant on funding genetic studies when we should be looking at lifestyle modifications. A lot of it is congruent with what you're saying and your thought
Exactly.
process.
Yeah, coming back to her lifestyle modifications, I think that is an unlooked, unappreciated form of management of especially chronic diseases. I will give you a quick example. I'm not diabetic, but because of my research for my book and otherwise, I'm wearing a continuous glucose monitor. So just to see what I can do, what I'm writing, what I'm researching is good. So I have noticed uh, that it is a known fact. If you eat a meal, then you go for a brisk walk, your blood sugar comes down. But the way it comes down and the amount it comes down, it's mind-boggling.
Yeah.
I had a meal. My blood sugar went up to 140, 150 or something from my normal of 100s. And all I did is I have done the opposite also. I've done nothing and I've done this one. Within like 12 to 13 minutes, it was a staggering drop all the way to 95, from 145 to 95. I think
Mhm.
it was in 12 minutes. None of the drugs is going to do that. Insulin is not going to do that. It's going to take some time.
Right.
Oral medications are going to take days and hours and days. There are so many simple things that we should have been doing if we had the right directions and guidelines from our providers, that we would probably not need to take many of the medications. And same thing
Well,
if this
yeah.
hypertension, same thing happens with a few other things. Some of the medication you'll need to take anyway, but you will not need to rely so much on being on drugs for every little thing that ails you.
Yeah, I mean, that gets into the topic of philosophy, really, because some
Right.
people need, there's Alistair McIntyre wrote,
Right,
in After Virtue, there's rights and there's utility, right? And when one person's utility invades another person's quote unquote rights, that's where you have bureaucracies and systems that kind of need to manage those, which are both
right,
basically arbitrary things. So the health system had to be shaped one way where it can't accommodate everyone. I guess it can accommodate the wealthy because they can kind of pay cash for whatever they want to do, right?
right,
But the people who need it most are the generally the lower income where the health choices are not the best. The food
right,
choices in those neighborhoods are not the best. Um, in many ways that feeds this pharma industrial complex, which I don't believe is like a lot of people, I don't believe is a conspiracy, but I do think
right.
these companies are interested in making money, so they're
Of course.
experts at taking a situation and adapting it for
Yes.
uh, increasing shareholder value.
Right,
However, like the benefit of the arguments are from the more protective side, which the FDA it seems like used to be, and I guess is still, is to create like a nanny state where, well, this is the paradigm, and if you're,
right,
we're not going to put you on this until these things happen, and yeah,
right,
we could do a lot to prevent that, but no one's going to comply anyways, or very few will comply anyways, so why waste time on that? And these are from
right,
the same people that brought you the food pyramid, which is
right.
complete. That was meant
Yes,
to guide people in a way,
right,
which I'm not going to get into conspiracies on that, but
right.
let's just give them the doubt that it was bad information, right? But
Exactly.
they never changed it when they knew the information was
Yes,
screaming in their faces. So there is some truth to both sides. Like I know as a site owner, we do a lot of obesity studies. We
right,
have people in the studies, they get paid every visit, $100. They
right,
get the GLP. They're
right,
given scales, they're given a refrigerator, they're given all kinds of stuff, yoga mat, you name it.
right,
They give whatever. These patients learned if I'm gonna have a party, I'm gonna skip my dose.
right.
That way I don't have the bad side effect and I can enjoy best of both worlds. And
Wow.
so there's this whole
Okay.
argument of even if we tell people what to do, we
Yes,
know they're not going to do it. So then shouldn't we just, that's the counter argument to your kind of let's
right.
help people guide them in the right direction. And I don't know. I think there's truth to that too. So I don't actually know what a solution would be.
Yeah, it's kind of mixed. First of all, I would start with the fact that in the United States, well, most of the Western world, and mostly in Western world, mostly in the United States, we have the most advanced healthcare, no doubt over that. I have lived, worked in different places, different countries, different continents. I can actually personally testify how far advanced we are. But that also means we still are not perfect. We have all these drawbacks. We're missing people, we're missing diseases, we're missing early detection. So there's so many things going on which we could have been doing. Even with current research, current information, current knowledge, we could have been doing much more. I'll give you another quick example of a patient I saw recently. Again, I would say doctors are amazing. They are well trained doctors. They have their mindset to heal people, but given the system, the time allotment, and all those things, restrictions, how busy and hurried the whole system is. So I had this patient who's his. I said, okay, I was treating her for chronic pain. How are you otherwise? Do you see your family doctor regularly? Oh yeah, I go see doctor regularly. I said, do you get labs? They said, yeah, we do get labs. I said, how is your? I know why I thought she looked anemic to me clinically. I said, you look kind of pale. Are you okay? How was the labs like? No, no, no. I just saw a doctor. She just sent me and she took out the note, on the phone. You have the easy access to your chart. She opened it up, and it was, I think their and was 12.8 or something was their cutout for hemoglobin, and she was 12.5 or something, or 12.1. So I said, and the note from the doctor was, labs look good. Keep up the good work, or something like that.
Wow.
So I looked at this. I said, "Can I look it up? That kind of looks very low." She said, "Yes." And so we together went to this, just the hemoglobin part of it. All I did is went to hemoglobin 12.2 and went to trends. And turns out 4 years back, 5 years back, she was 17, around 17 grams. Then she went to 15 grams. Then she went to 13 grams cutoff level.
Hmm.
And the PCP saw it, saw that it's kind of close to the blood sugar, close to the level that she should be. It's not normal, but it's kind of okay. And stopped there.
Yeah.
So I said, no, it is not, that's not right because something is happening. You shouldn't be dropping 2 grams, 3 grams hemoglobin every year in the last 4 years. So I kind of pushed her a little bit, go back to her PCP, tell her she was sent to a hematologist. As far as I know, she was started on iron transfusion. They're doing other evaluations for her. Means that 12.8 labs look good. Fact was not fact. It was something else because in hurried life, hurried practice, in spite of having excellent and great doctors, I will not blame any doctor for missing this, but the whole system, the time we spent with the patients, and the time we spent on preventative and prophylactic and those situations is very limited. So
Yeah.
something needs to be changed.
Well, I think it's the incentive structures because
Exactly.
to me, from the outsider, my father is a psychiatrist and ran a private
Right.
practice for years, but he always complained about, the insurance and, what they're incentivizing and how they audit you for certain things. So you're trained indirectly to follow those KPIs, key performance indicators, and uh, if the doctors were incentivized,
Right.
I believe the doctors look at medicine like a pill as an insurance policy. Like, even if I miss something and their next visit
Right.
they are below that threshold, I'll just write a script and they're
Yeah.
good. Everyone's happy, it'll get approved. So the incentive is not really to prevent this. It's more that's a safety blanket for if you let someone slip. Whereas if the
Right.
incentives were flipped to let's keep people off of medication, I think you would be looking at trends. I think everybody would be looking at trends in that case.
Yes, that reminds me of previous all the stories we read from 1001 Nights and all those stories we read in childhood. So many of them, you will see there was a context. The king had their own personal physician or physicians. They were paid in gold and diamonds and necklaces as long as the king was happy and healthy. As soon as the king fell sick, they were in big trouble.
Yeah, yeah,
So I don't want people to get physicians and treaters and providers to get in trouble, but I want the whole system to turn to this way that you are trying to keep people safe and healthy rather than treating them when they already have these chronic diseases.
yeah,
Those are mostly related to, metabolic syndromes, coronary artery disease,
yeah.
and all those kinds of things,
But it's
which are
lifestyle.
is the lifestyle, right?
It's essentially lifestyle, and then hey, you have to look beyond pharmaceutical because in many ways, pharmaceutical is just reactionary to the
Exactly.
lifestyle. So
Ex-
the FDA is together, I mean, purportedly for a reason. The food is the biggest drug you can put in your body. So
Exactly.
this administration seems to be very activist amongst the food industry, RFK.
I'm
I
very
know
hopeful. Yes.
people are in our industry, they hate him because anti-vax
Right.
and all this, but I think where he's looking in the right direction. Now, people may argue his qualifications to be doing so as a lawyer, but we've never had anyone since the modern FDA that has actually looked at food in this way as one of the root
Exactly.
causes
Food and
for
toxins. I would add toxins to that. Right. Yeah.
so, but
The-
what does
tho-
that do? what does that do to our industry? Again, it goes back to compliance. Like people are not going to necessarily be compliant. They're going to eat what they want to eat. But if you establish, I guess, a bare minimum of safety standard in food, and if you include
Exactly.
safety as not something that's going to kill you fast, but kill you slow, which is
Exactly.
all the stuff that we're eating is going to kill you slow, but they're considered safe, right?
Ultra processed foods, and we'll go back to the toxins. And toxins, I would include anything that has the potential to harm you, your body.
Yeah.
So we will start with ultra processed foods, and we'll start with sugar substitutes. Many of them are banned in the rest of the countries other than America, and we still have it. So there's so many out there. I think it was United Nations. They were coming up with WHO was coming up with 7 or 8 listed of sugar substitutes that should not be in the market. They should not be
Sucralose,
edible.
right?
But we're
Sucralose is
st-
one.
we're st- we're still using many of them. So there are a lot of things that we are doing to our bodies, which we should have avoided, and which we would need encouragement for.
Yeah, the thing is, there's a couple of issues with this. So, in order to avoid oversimplifying, there's probably more, but number one, we've inherited this system that is the way it is. It's probably going to take a few generations to break the cycle. So it's the
Right,
problem's not going away in our lifetime. You and I will be long gone. I think we'll still be dealing with ramifications
right,
from this. And number
right,
two, this is the part that maybe is easier to fix. There's so much money now in this system where people have learned this is how to be successful in this industry. And you
right.
see it with the GLPs. I mean, these are going to be some of the best-selling drugs of all time.
Yes,
And
it's a
it's
billion market.
directly a response to what we've been talking about. Now, do you think that's good or bad? And I know it's hard to pinpoint, but I know it's not solving the root cause, but it's better than
Right.
not having a GLP-1.
Yeah, yeah. I think if you're alluding to, our being a capitalistic society which focuses on free enterprise, that is good. That is good. That's the force behind our innovation. That's the force behind what we have created for people keeping healthy. That's the force behind the new drugs that are coming up. That is very, very good. But we need to have some sort of guidelines, some sort of parameters to go with that. And that's all we need. So
Mm,
it's not that anybody is doing something wrong. We need that free enterprise to work through it.
I see.
But some guidelines, some focus, some attitude changes. That's what's needed.
I see. So then
Yes.
you must be somewhat happy with the administration's push, or at least hinting at nutraceutical. There, a lot of people in the industry are expecting a surge of nutraceutical studies. It
Oh,
sounds
I'm
like
looking
it's,
forward to that. Looking forward to that. There's so much out there. I think you and I previously talked about other things, other additives. We just discussed sugar substitutes, but there are other food enhancers like monosodium glutamate and other things where people can look them up. So there are a lot of things which are toxic. We know they are toxic, and a lot of things that may be toxic and we don't know. So the focus on nutraceuticals and what can be good and what cannot be good, let's go out and research. Let's try to find out. That's a huge field out there we need to explore. Right,
yeah. And I mean, back down to earth here because you have to treat the
right.
patients in the in the real world, right? Not in the idealistic sense. So,
I would caution only one thing about nutraceuticals is listening to people who are experts. If our HHS comes out with something, I would listen and I would believe it and I would trust it. If an influencer tells me to take these 7 supplements 13 times a day, I would be very, very hesitant. If
mhm,
an influencer tells me to go out, make sure you run, make sure you do 15 minutes run after a walk, make sure you do a hike once a week, make sure you do the muscle strength 2 times a week in addition to aerobics, I would listen to them. But anytime they would come back to me with their own supplemental compound brand that's sold at their own store at $129.99 per month, I would be very hesitant where that goes, because there's always a risk of people falling prey to that, both sides, the people who are selling it falling into prey because it's money, and people falling into prey because they are trusting these people who are saying or doing those things. So as long as it's just reliable information from coming from good sources, and you're following that, and you always have to do your own reading. Make sure the person who is telling you something, is a nutritionist. They are a physician, they are endocrinologists, and they're trained, they know what to say, what to do. Not someone who has no idea, or are not trained, or not well versed
Yeah.
with other than their commercial interest in a particular product.
Yeah, that's true. I think the main reason for needing regulatory oversight is everything you said is true. I agree with. The problem is it's a lot of work, hard work, and re personal like it's a lot of hard work to be a responsible person in society.
Exactly.
Like the, I mean, in a way, we rely on these experts as a shortcut to give me the information quick, right? And
Right.
that's kind of why the FDA is here. That's why
Right.
HHS is here. But when those systems get hijacked, and even less so, like influencers, for example, it can kind of manipulate in one direction or another. And we've seen it happen from both sides, from the private side, from the government side, control, institutions are good at
Right.
getting bigger, not necessarily more
Yes.
efficient. But I don't know. In many ways, I'm hopeful with these new administration, even though they're getting a lot of hate. I mean, a lot of hate. I gotta
Right.
send you the video
Right.
of the what
Right.
I saw yesterday. I think you'll enjoy it, but I'm
Right.
not saying these are like the, saints or, uh, religious figures, but it's nice
Right.
to see a different direction from an institution that has historically been opaque and
Exactly.
ambiguous in its advice and questionable in its recommendations.
On that note, I would ask you this. What do you think of supplements that are available in the market that are
Yep.
completely uncontrolled, to the extent that you can add, I am a pain physician, I write different medications, drugs like gabapentin and other medications.
Yeah.
You can actually use gabapentin in the supplements as long as they are subclinical, subtherapeutic
Correct.
dosages. They
Correct.
will be available over the counter.
Correct.
And then other supplements which are not known what they do, what they cause. So we might have a blind spot there as a nation of not having a supervision, of not keeping an eye on what people are selling and what people are consuming.
Well, you know the name of Macary's book that's on my
Uh-huh.
to-do list to listen to is called Blind Spots. That's his
Oh my
book.
God, we got the point. I
And so
honestly did not know that, but
that's literally when you said that word. So I have
right,
supplements here in front of me. Like I
all
have
right,
my dad has BPH, and I know I'm so
right,
prone to it. And
right,
so I asked my doctor, several, and then I did my
right.
own research. I have a few supplement stacks here, but I would love that these things went through testing. I mean, at this point, you just rely on brand and you rely on
Exactly.
like the community reviews. I think that's
Yes.
in a way replaced like a FDA. Well, it hasn't replaced. I don't think it's as good, but it kind
Right,
of takes the role of the regulator. You're
right.
essentially crowdsourcing the regulations to the community.
Exactly. And you never know with how much analysis there is in all these medications. I would give you an example of melatonin.
Mhm.
It's hard to tell if it tells you 3 milligrams of melatonin or 10 milligrams of melatonin in there. You are almost sure that it's never that. It's
Right,
either too much or too little or
right,
something in the middle. Right.
right. And if
As simple as that.
and we know if there's ever an opportunity and a green light for somebody to cut a corner and make a profit, it's gonna
They will
happen.
do
It's
it.
not
Yeah.
maybe it will ha happen. So
Right.
I think branding becomes important, but it would be nice to do studies on these things and find a way
Yes.
to subsidize that rather than wasting all this money at research that seems to be going nowhere.
Again, there might be very useful supplements. There might be so useful elements in those
Yeah,
supplements that
yeah.
we could utilize. But as of now, we have no idea how good or how bad they are.
We have very small studies. We have like, we rely on peer-reviewed, very small budget. And I think that was to Macary's point, maybe to RFK's point as well. But really Macary he's the doer, he's the executor of this stuff. And um, they looked at the NIH and they said, look, what have we seen from cancer research in 40 years? Like they're still giving chemotherapy to patients when, yeah, we have immunotherapy, we have different things, but how much if you compare the proportion of the money spent at institutions like the NIH versus the output we receive that actually benefits humanity and not benefit in an abstract way, like when you get into things like DE and I, which I think are important, but like objective things like cancer rates, those are
Right.
going up. Cancer survival rates, right? Those are basically the
Exactly.
same as they've always
It
been.
has not changed much. Right.
It's not changed much. So, like, how long do we wait? Do we continue to pour money and now study genetics? Do we now study, they haven't been studying microbiome. It seems like the industry, once they capture the levers of control,
Right.
they go all in and it's very hard to replace those people. And I think that's what just happened is like rip off that whole system. Of course, people are
Exactly.
going to get pissed, innocent people lose their jobs, but that's the direction this administration wanted to go with this. I'm not necessarily against it. I think it could have been done maybe a little differently, but I'm not against
Right.
it, the overall idea of what they're doing.
Opening up systems, that's important. That's
Yeah.
very important.
But
That's the only way for people to trust it. Right. Yeah.
I interview people like Darshan Kulkarni, who I gotta get you on a
I
podcast
listen
with
to him.
him.
Right.
And
Hmm.
he goes the opposite way. It's like, well, but so what do we do? Just stop the whole thing? It's like, well, that's what they're doing. They stop the whole thing. I
Right.
don't know. I mean, what do you do? How long do you want to wait? Like, a human lifespan is 80 years old. They've already
Right.
been researching the same paradigms for 40 years. Like,
Exactly.
that's a half of a lifetime for somebody who could have received a different kind of treatment, maybe.
Wow. Yeah.
I don't know. These are complicated
Yeah.
things. I mean,
This is very complicated. Yeah, but we're hopeful. I think we are moving in the right direction. I am very hopeful, especially with everything becoming very more visible, more open to people. That gives the accountability that we need in these systems. And again, my focus would be preventative medicine. My focus would be looking at the supplements and trying to find out the truth and opening up those supplements that are really effective, that we found them effective.
yeah,
But
yeah,
again, prophylactically doing something to prolong the health span, what my friend calls it, rather than just the lifespan. So
right.
improve our health. Right.
Yeah, and I do think most of the pharmaceuticals do provide that, but you have to start questioning if you have the funds in the world's richest country. I mean,
Exactly.
I think it's unacceptable that we haven't looked at the holistic methods as well. When there's plenty of money, or at least there used to be plenty of money, not anymore. That's the problem now is there's actually no more money, right?
Right. Yes,
There
exactly.
used to be
Yeah, there
plenty,
is
and it
too
went
much
to
more.
all
Right.
kind of went
I know.
everywhere.
We did
Uh,
everything.
so now it's kind of going backwards in a way, but I don't know. Why did you start a site? You wanted to give more alternative options to your patients, or
Yes, because I was already doing what I was doing, except that I was doing it in a different place, and I realized that we can be helpful to the patient. I think my first study, maybe 20 years back or so, was whereas a PI was one of the third drug for fibromyalgia. It's called Swella. I think the first drug was Cymbalta and Lyrica. They were the first and the second. There was one more drug that came out at that time, which is called Svela, and that was I was one of the PIs for that study as well. So that got approved too, but unfortunately, post-marketing, there were some cardiovascular issues, and that was withdrawn from the market. And I realized there were people before that. I had just finished my fellowship, and I was seeing patients. There was nothing for a well-known entity of diseases. There was no medication available. So my focus was let's try to see if we can get something in and let's try to research something. And that's my focus now. There's so much out there, so many unanswered questions, so many diseases. For example, I'll give you an example of opioids. We have always been trying to find out a pain reliever which is not addicting, and the pharmaceutical industry came up with it. We have the first sodium channel blocker that just got released last year, which is not an addicting medication. I'm not advocating or not advocating it, but a drug with a different mechanism of action is available now after we have done the studies. We have focused on it and we have brought it to the market. We as science and as industry and the science together, faculty together. So there are options, opportunities for us to. As my teacher used to say, we have added life to the years. Now we have to add. We have added years to the life. Now we have to add life to
Life to
those
the year.
years.
Yeah.
That's what we should be working on.
Mm.
Yes, we have lifespan now increasing up to 90s in some places all over, but they are not healthy 30 years of life that we have added. So we need to focus on that and focus on the, like I said, health span, which is more important, which is equally important as the lifespan.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, and I think research is where that happens, and we're at the
Exactly.
we are at the crossroads of many different all advancements, whether they work or they don't, whether money keeps flowing in there for some reason or it doesn't, whether it's pushed by the government or it's not. It's all of it is research. I think research should not be political. I think the FDA should not be political. But
Right.
unfortunately, these days, definitely is right in the front.
Many things are political.
Right
Right.
at the front. But I think it boils down to virtue and philosophy, and we kind of
Exactly.
have a like, everyone has their own arbitrary virtues and philosophies, and so yours will impede on mine at some point because we don't have an anchor that kind of holds everything down to a certain standard. Like the Greeks had a pretty good system. I mean,
Right.
it could have been improved by now, but it actually went backwards after the Enlightenment
Right.
because everyone became their
Exactly.
own foundation for virtue, and then
Yes.
you get a manipulators and things like that.
Yes.
I don't know. I gotta get you on the Dr. Joe Show podcast because he's my one of my investigators here in Yuma. He has his own channel where he talks just about this stuff. My PI in Yuma, Dr. Smith, he's very much like you, but he doesn't go on videos. His email signature is everything you eat or drink will either hurt you or harm you. So think
Right. That's true.
carefully. Think carefully.
Yes.
He's a fan of the GLPs, and we've been getting busy at our clinic with those. So, I am
Okay.
not anti-industry. I am obviously pro-industry, but
Me
I think
too.
I think you can still be critical of the elements of the
Yes.
system that are
Of
not good.
course. Exactly. Right. The other thing that we might do before we end would be, you alluded to that before, was the food pyramid and RDWs. That needs to be looked into really, really well. I'll give you an example of protein in there. So we're still stuck with zero point 0.5 grams of protein per kilogram, or zero point 0.5 grams of protein, 2.2 pounds of weight, which whatever study you read now, that is way down. That's way down. And loss of muscle loss that happens in older people after 50s and 60s and 70s. That could be, a lot of it could be prevented, or would could be worked on if we were eating well. So things like that, the whole pyramid, needs to be looked into. Whole RDW requirements. There is no, as such, as you know, that there is no daily requirement for carbs or fat. There's no daily requirement for carbohydrates. There's daily requirement for proteins. There's daily requirement for fats. And carbohydrates are not daily requirements. You can make carbohydrates here and there, and you can transfer from carb to fat and fat to carb. That keeps happening in the body. But the focus that we have had before, I think it's time to change that based on what the new research says, and make a drastic change there as well. If we want people to stop falling down in their 70s and 60s and getting hip fractures and dying later because of things like that. So something needs to be changed.
Yeah, the question is, will it? I mean, it looks like
Yes,
it's getting changed from the top, but we'll see how long it
exactly.
lasts. Obviously, that's going to have implications for everyone underneath it, the whole ecosystem underneath it. I don't think much changes too drastically, but
Right.
I do start thinking of nutraceuticals. I start thinking of uh, even vaccines. I think they're going to start doing more vaccine, like more rigorous vaccine studies as opposed to just
Exactly.
the shorter ones that they had before. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I mean, it's good time to be in research. I think we're in the golden decade. I think we have
Right.
10 years as research site owners that you and I are to really do well before
Right.
AI maybe takes over.
Takes over. Right. Yeah.
But I mean, the thing you
Yeah.
said with the doctor example with the hemoglobin,
Exactly.
if you train the
Exactly.
AI to look for trends as well, it's going to see it.
Exactly. It's going to be like a big difference. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh,
Well,
we're
that's
good.
it. Everybody go connect. I'm going to put both of your books underneath the video and in the show notes for Dr. Purvez. And you're on LinkedIn as well? Uh,
Yes.
we got to get you on a live stream with Darshan. We can have some good debates.
Perfect.
Okay.
Anytime.
Like, subscribe, comment, share. Everybody go connect right now. Bye-bye.